Before anything else, we would like to state again and remind our viewers that our objective in doing this program is to present the facts we gathered and present it to you without passing any judgment or conclusion just yet. At the end of this series, however, we will be providing a conclusion and a stand based on the research that our group has done. If you have information that can enlighten us and provide more clarity on this topic, please contact us and we will be more than willing to present your side. In our previous episode, we already talked about the claim of Butuan, as Dr. Potenciano Malvar explained the 9 2/3 latitude that was written on the records of Antonio Pigafetta. Mr. Greg Hontiveros also explains his reaction paper to the Mojares panel report, as well other research he has done. For a long time, Butuan was believed to be the site of the first Easter Mass in the country. This belief was the norm and has never been seriously contested. Claims that with the new primary source documents, a correction was needed to be done. In the early 1900s, there were claims that Limasawa Island is the location of the Mass, not in Butuan. In this episode of Historia, we will continue to go through the claim of Butuan, as they tell us their side in claiming the first Mass in the Philippines, together with Butuan proponents who contest their claim to the panel regarding the first Mass in the country.
Hey, what's up? I'm Mark Pangilinan, your kulit traveler from Limang Siglo, and welcome to Historia, Story Within History. In this series, you will hear the stories of every place we visit. Let's explore, enhance our knowledge, but more importantly, enjoy, while deepening our understanding of our history.
This episode was made through the generous support of BitStop Network Services, Hosting Solutions. Two sites are claiming the place for the first Easter Mass, Butuan and Limasawa, but we will focus first on the claim of Butuan. I am still with Mr. Greg Hontiveros, a researcher and a writer from Butuan City, who accepted our invitation to tell us more about his paper for their claim as the site of the first Mass. Currently, Mr. Hontiveros is based in Southern California.
I'm Greg Hontiveros. Well, my full name is rather long. No? Si Gregorio Jose, at two names. Gregorio Jose Palma Hontiveros. I'm from Butuan City. Although at the moment, I'm staying in Modesto, California.
In our previous episode, Mr. Greg Hontiveros told us that he wrote a paper about the evidence he gathered about the claim of Butuan, but it was not touched or opened by the commissioned panel.
Municipalities in the Visayas and Mindanao. And Limasawa definitely was not within the dominion of Butuan. I am more confident that it belonged to the dominion of the ruler of Bohol. And I can prove that. When they arrived, they were not welcome in Limasawa. It was in Limasawa because when they arrived in Kapalian, in Leyte, people were so afraid of the arrival of the Spaniards. And when they arrived also in Limasawa, by the way, there was only one guy, only one person in that whole island was shouting at them, was very hostile, did not let anyone, and they proceeded to Camiguin, which is, you could see from the distance from Limasawa. They went to the island of Camiguin, the same behavior of the people, they ran away, but eventually they made friends with them. And then, before arriving in Bohol, which is also nearby, no? If you are in Camiguin, you can see Bohol from Camiguin. in Limasawa, Bohol is very near. In other words, the Boholaners told him about the truth about it. And one of those very interesting accounts was by Father Pombes, a Jesuit missionary based in Mindanao in Dapitan, because the rulers of Dapitan, when he arrived there as a pastor of the place, the family there that was ruling Dapitan were the former rulers of Bohol, and they told him the story of what happened. And though the behavior of the people of Tamiging, of Limasawa and Kabalian judged completely with what happened in Bohol. You can just say that if they were hostile to the arrival of white men, whom they thought were the Portuguese who were helping out the Ternatans of or the Moluccas who had a grudge against the ruler of Bohol, that only showed that they were attacked also by the Moluccans and by the Portuguese. Well, Portuguese were there as opportunistic soldiers of fortune, by the way. They were not part of the game, but this joined them, joined those of the Sultanate of Ternate who had a grudge against the ruler of Bohol, and they had depredations in Kabalian, in Carmiging, and Limasawa, which goes to show that they belong to the same tribal alliances. The officers of Legazpi also went to Butuan because they originally wanted to go to Butuan, although they didn't know that was a place called Masawa in Butuan. No? And when they arrived in Butuan, interestingly, the same week they arrived in Butuan. When they arrived in Butuan, they were welcomed. By the way, the first ones to meet them were women in Butuan. They were given food. No? So it was a hospitality shown by women of Butuan, which means that there was no hostility at all. But why was there hostility shown by the behavior of people in Kabalian, in Limasawa, in Camiging, and in Bohol, not in Butuan? If Limasawa was part of the dominion of Butuan, then the behavior of the Limasawans must have been different. Limasawa would not have been destroyed also. Just it was like so many places in Bohol was destroyed by the from the Sultanate of Ternate in the Moluccas and also by the Portuguese. So that's one very basic example, no? Because they went on right on the same month to these places, including Butuan. But that is one example only to show that the claim that Limasawa was part of the dominion of Butuan just to cover up everything was not a sufficient proof at all. So anyway, that's something that I'm writing a paper on that, no? And we are Facebook friends with Dr. Sanchez de Mora. I'll be writing him also about it, no? And I also promised Father De Castro that I'll give him a copy of that, my own views of that particular issue. But I joined the webinar just listening to the talk of Dr. Sanchez de Mora in that regard. But I'm writing a paper, no, as a kind of reaction. But basically, what I mean to say is that this is a very interesting story, by the way, because while it is true that the first month was basically symbolic, no? Because it was basically symbolic. It's the start of Christianity in the Philippines, but basically it was symbolic because it was there was not much that was done. It was only by the time of Legazpi that the first church was established in Cebu, and that was the formal start of the Christianization of the Philippines. I would just say that this particular controversy is also a good area for inquiry by history students of history, because there's a lot of data about it. No? There's a lot of data, and it's very interesting. In fact, I presented also a multidisciplinary approach in resolving historical controversies. You know? So That's one way of that's my way of approaching that, because this is the latest approach in resolving historical controversies through the multidisciplinary approach, no? Rather than just plain reliance on documents. So anyway, basically, there were a lot of aspects also on the controversy which I could add as you would continue to ask me, and probably I should also provide you pictures and papers.
Mr. Greg also mentioned the nautical interpretation he got based on primary sources. Mr. Greg continues to air his concern about the impartiality of the Mojares panel. He had a serious apprehension as he supports by saying two of the panel members have written articles and books that never questioned the location of Mazawa. Mr. Greg thinks that for these panelists, Mazawa and Limasawa are just one and the same.
I wrote my paper based on primary sources. In fact, you will be surprised that in 1997, when the Gankayko panel was convened, and they came up with a report, they only accepted two primary sources. The account of Pigafetta, based on what it was called the Ambrosian Codex, the Italian version, and the account or the navigational log of Francisco Albo. Only two, by the way. And they were insisting on that. In fact, the Mojares panel also insisted on that, except that the Mojares panel began to accept that there were other valid primary sources. But they didn't touch on that, by the way. So, long before the Mojares panel was convened, we have already presented the other primary sources. First, Pigafetta. He said Pigafetta did not only write one original edition, he wrote four, by the way. Now, that's one. At the time, as I said, they only accepted the Ambrosian Codex. But it's very important because there are certain points in the Yale Codex that would give us some kind of data. It's very slight, just very slight difference. For example, I'll give an example. No? One way of trying to locate Masawa was to locate a place called Gatigan. So by the way, what were the known places until now? You have Pumunhon, everybody knows where Pumunhon is, and you know where Cebu is. Okay? But Gatigan and Masawa, these are places which are what we call contentious. Now, but if you know where Gatigan is, you will know exactly where Masawa is. Why? Because the distance and the direction cited by Pigafetta in the account, and by Albo also in that regard, between Cebu and Gatigan, between Gatigan and Masawa, and between Masawa and Monhon. Number two, there are other descriptions of Gatigan on the way to Cebu, which they dropped by for a while, just a few hours. And by the way, this Gatigan, in the account, in the Ambrosian Codex, in the Italian version, it just said, the word used was generic. The island of Butuan, the island of Gatigan, the island of Cebu, or things like this, the island of Baybay, no? But of course, they were not islands by themselves. But in the Yale Codex, it said Cape Gatigan, Cape of Gatigan. The Cape is a point, no? It's a headland, which means that there was something in the Yale Codex that said Gatigan was a cape, and therefore it was part of a larger island. It was part of Leyte, the western part of Leyte, where we were passing through, and as Pigafetta said, the Cape of Gatigan, the headland of Gatigan, is where we turn west to Cebu. And he described that Gatigan is 15 leguas from Cebu, or roughly 60 nautical miles. And he said Gatigan is 20 leguas to Masawa. 20 would be somewhere between 75 to 80 nautical miles. Now, if that is the case, Limasawa and that Gatigan is we discovered to be, which I, in my calculation, also there were 3 Spanish maps which showed later on where Gatigan was. 3 Spanish maps. It showed that Gatigan is only 20 nautical miles from Limasawa. And that Gatigan is presently Green Point near Maasin. And that's where all ships, all boats on the way to Cebu from the south, that's where it is that headland was used as a reference where you have to turn west from there in going to Cebu. But it could not be Limasawa to Gatigan because Limasawa is so near. It's only not 20 nautical miles. While the distance was 20 leguas. It's long, that's far. That's all the way up to 18 nautical miles. In other words, it jives with Masao in Butuan. Masao to Green Point is roughly that distance. So there are discrepancies, but just a few miles only. Less than 5 miles. In other words, you have a perfect site of Gatigan. And by the way, Gatigan could be found in subsequent Spanish maps. In 1830, in 1850, and in 1855, the maps of Leyte would show the place called Gatigan very, very near Maasin. And it was always, they always say, Punta Gigatigan, Punta Gigatigan, Punta Gigatigan. That's the native name, of course, no? That's native name. But that shows very well that until the 19th century, Gatigan was still a name that was existent in that area. That whole point, which is presently Green Point. There's a headland where you would turn west to passing through the Canigao Channel, which is the channel between Leyte and Bohol. That's Canigao Channel. And at the north end of Canigao Channel is the headland of Green Point or Gatigan, no? Of Pigafetta. That's where all ships going to Cebu turn west. So, in other words, there are other descriptions of Gatigan which was contained in my paper, which would show us that that place was part of the mainland of Leyte. So, and many, many more that I could show that there's in fact a whole literature of about Masawa that could be found, a place that could be found.
Aside from Dr. Potenciano Malvar and Mr. Greg Hontiveros, we are with Mr. Jun Alvizo, a researcher from Butuan City, who worked with Father Amalia, a proponent from Butuan.
I'm Jun Alvizo. I'm the Executive Director of Filipinas Quincentenario organization that actually spearheaded the awareness of the 500th anniversary celebration of the first circumnavigation of the world. That's what we are celebrating in 2021. The Filipinas Quincentenario, the 500 years of Philippine Christianity, and as well as the Philippine nation. That's it. And I am the Executive Director of the organization, Filipinas Quincentenario, and the Philippine Quincentennial Center Incorporated.
On our next episode, we will continue the discussion together with Mr. Jun Alvizo, a researcher from Butuan, and Father Amalia, one of the proponents of Butuan. We are done with 3 claims as the site of the first Mass in the country. The celebration of a Mass by Blessed Odorico on Santiago Island off the coast of Bolinao, Pangasinan, the claim of Mazawa Island, and Homonhon Island. On our next episode, we will continue discussing the claim of Butuan as the series of the first mass in the Philippines is coming to the final claim, which is Limasawa. As we finish presenting all of these claims, we will make a conclusion or a stand that are based on the research that our group has done. Let me know what you think about this episode. You can comment on our YouTube channel or tweet your reaction and tag us at Limang Siglo. If you want to check our previous episodes, don't forget to click the I button on the upper right corner of the video. Historia playlist will be linked on the description box below.
Time flies so fast, but every minute is a story. Thank you for watching this episode. I'm your Kulit Traveler, Mark Pangilinan. Our national hero Jose Rizal once said, "He who does not know how to look back at where he came from will never get to his destination." See you again next week. And this is Historia, story within history.
Here at Historia, we don't have a monopoly in knowledge, talent, and information. If you would like to be one of our council of consultants, we would be more than willing to discuss it with you. Just email us at mark@limangsiglo.org or message us on Limang Siglo Facebook page. This episode was made through the generous support of Bitstop Network Services, Hosting Solutions. Manage Hosting Provider.